shit on him every day, so
That's fine with me.
we're not changing.
Yeah, no kidding.
Hey guys, welcome. This is good evening. This is Robert and Jason here with Mr. Texas Real Estate. This is the Texas Real Estate Radio Network, and we are 1 week out.
Mm-hmm.
Jason, 1 week out.
1 week out from the election. Everybody take a big breath here.
So I have a certain respect for the polls, but I've also believe just follow the money.
Yeah.
Right? Follow the money. And where's Trump going? I don't know why he went to New Hampshire other than maybe to raise some money.
Yeah.
I don't understand that deal. That New Hampshire is absolutely not in play.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the strongest deals they have. But Biden's going to Georgia. Kamala Harris is coming here to Texas.
Which is crazy.
Right.
So there must be some data that says
they're
that
close, or there's some close congressional elections, or
you don't. Let's explain to kind of the folks out there. You're a week out. You do not go to any place, even if it's money, because it's hard for you even to deploy the capital in a week, right? You don't go anywhere that is a lock.
Right.
You go to the places where you're close to winning. So I think it's very interesting that Kamala Harris is going to be here for 3 cities, right?
Yeah.
So maybe Texas really is in play. I think another thing a lot of people understand, there's polls that you guys are seeing, and then there's their internal polls.
Sure.
And so keep in mind, one of the reasons that Trump did so well in 2016 is they had a lot of data that wasn't available to a lot of other folks. If you guys remember that whole debacle with Facebook,
they're mining all that data.
They were mining all that data. They don't necessarily have that level of access they had before.
Yep.
So if you remember, Trump was running around going to some states where people were like, what's he doing here?
Yep.
So they had some internal data that said they're close.
Right.
Now, I was thinking about this. If Trump does lose, where do we think that the Democrats did really well? I think 2 things that really worked in their favor. One is they didn't turn the Supreme Court nominee into a circus. Mm-hmm. Like, I think just letting that happen was really good on their part.
And that little hot mic.
Yeah, that little hot mic moment.
Guys ran the best. This is the best one I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Very good, Lindsay. Yep.
And then I think the second thing that worked in their favor was Trump getting COVID literally a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. Like that, because
that was the October surprise.
That was the October surprise where he should have been out campaigning and all that, and he was down for 10 days.
And skipped the debate.
And skipped the debate, right?
Skipped the debate.
I think those are going to be the 3 biggest things that if the Democrats win, they're going to go back and say those are the 3 seminal moments. Not turning the Supreme Court thing into a circus.
Yep.
Trump's COVID stuff.
Yep.
And him not being able to go out and campaign and fundraise and all that.
I said it almost 2 weeks ago. This is the season for unsubstantiated claims, right?
Right.
And we're already seeing all that nonsense out there. So, and I don't think that's working because of early voting.
Right.
So as we speak today, we're over 60 million early votes cast.
Yeah.
On last last presidential election was 143 million or something like that total. 150, call it. So, we could be at 160, 170 million, and we could have by the time election day comes up, over half the votes already in.
Everyone is asking, like, why is the vote turnout so high? I'm like, there's nothing else to do.
You're right.
there's
a reason to go
sports. There's a reason to go out of the house. Yes. There's nothing else going on, right?
Right.
And it's been solid politics since, really get down to it since
right.
Corona,
There's no movies. There's no real sports. There's none of that stuff. Sports are down, and that TV's down. And so what is everyone following? They're following the race.
Yeah. It will be interesting to see how much of the national, the coronavirus response nationally is going to impact the national polls.
Yep.
And it's also going to be interesting to see how much it impacts locally, right?
Yep.
Seeing stuff going on in Jersey and New York and California, but then how much blame gets laid at the presidential level.
Right.
Because I think there is a good argument to be made. Yeah, states are responsible for response. However, this was a nationwide issue. Mm-hmm. how much is that going to get laid at the executive branch's feet? Because this is one of their jobs. I mean, let's be honest. They run FEMA, right? So,
and we're spiking
again,
at the absolute wrong point we're not good.
Yeah.
Not good. And in deep red states, right? Boise is out of IC units. It's some critical stuff is happening that is not breaking well for the president.
Yeah. So it's going to be fascinating to watch all that. Now, what will also be interesting, and the guys over at J.P. Morgan Chase, the analysts, have already started analyzing all the data, and then they've come up with 4 different scenarios based off of who wins, and not only who wins, but who wins the Senate and who wins the House, right? And what that all looks like for investors,
right?
And so we'll see. It's turning out to be incredibly interesting. This will be. Granted, I hear all the people that say I shouldn't trust the polls, and I'm like, you don't trust the polls, you trust the trends.
Yeah.
So I was watching Nate Silver this weekend, who is just painful to listen to, an hour-long podcast. I mean, he's just so such a nerd.
But he's
right?
a very smart guy, right?
Super smart guy. But I'm just sitting there and I'm like, it's so painful. And one of the points he made is, he said, the polls weren't necessarily wrong going into 2016 because if you look at the trend, Hillary was trending down since October. So you just watch the trend, and that was a good point. People come out and
trying to hold on. Yep.
Yeah, trying to hold on, and you'll hear a lot of the conversation right now is, time is not Trump's friend, right?
Yep.
And I'm like, there's some good and some bad to that, but it's what's the trend, and if the trend is Biden is holding and he's got 8, 9, 10-point lead in swing states, the likelihood he wins diminishes greatly every single day. So if they can't, and you got to remember the whole Comey letter and the Comey report was a huge boon for Trump the last 2 weeks prior to the election. We don't have that. There's nothing out there that swings it in his favor. So it's going to be interesting to see how this whole thing plays out, but it is not looking good for the red team unless there's some other data out there that we're not seeing.
So that early voting takes away that sort of bombshell thing, right? There's 7 days, and so what could happen? Could something happen that sways? Probably not anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Because even on those bombshells, it's only going to shift maybe 6% of the vote, right? There's still always the base.
So here's what's also fascinating they found out this time is that there are far less independent voters than there were in the last election.
Yes.
Like half as many. And then when you combine that with, by the time we get to Election Day, I don't know where we're at percentage-wise, but by Election Day, we could be at 30, 40, 50% have already voted. So whatever October surprise.
I don't think 50% is unreasonable.
I don't think it is either. Yep. I'd love to pull that up. If you guys can pull it up right now, what percentage do they think is already voted?
Yeah.
If they're at 30, 40% now, there could be an October surprise that has literally no value. We're literally talking about thousands of votes.
38% have voted already.
38% have already voted, which is crazy.
Yep.
So, you can have that big October surprise, but the margin – The margin for that having an impact is so small now. It's like, which to be quite honest with you, Joe announced, what was it, Thursday, Friday last week? They're not doing events anymore. He's not.
Yeah, just a couple key events here and there, yep.
But he's essentially done. So that's kind of wild when you think about it. Less than with about over a week left for the election.
Yeah, and then when they do the events like they did this week, they're triple teaming because now they have Obama on the stump.
Yeah.
So it's 3-on-2, right?
Yeah.
And the president's got to make up some ground, and they're down money wise. They're down $270 to $490.
All right, we'll be back. We'll talk a little bit more about the election.
Sorry, got into it. Yeah.
Welcome back. Talking about the election.
Yep.
So
money-wise, you're going to go right back into it. Money-wise, the Biden campaign and their registered supporters, like the Bloomberg groups, $480 million on hand.
It's crazy.
In the last week.
It's crazy.
Trump, $240.
Yeah.
Most of it with outside groups.
Mm-hmm.
So there's almost a 2-to-1 difference. And one of the funniest things it hasn't been done in a while, but the senator in South Carolina, Lindsey Graham, is against a tough re-election here. And always the third term for senators are the tough ones. His opponent has raised so much money that they're now buying ads for the independent conservative.
Oh, that's funny.
So they're because he doesn't think he's going to get more than 48% of the South Carolina vote. So he's got to stop Lindsey from getting 52. So if he can get a third party,
he gets a third party
up to 4%, he wins.
Yeah. So now, it's majority. It's not a It's majority wins and not over 50. Okay.
Yeah,
that's how I play that game.
He's paying for this other guy.
Yeah.
Who's not even running, but he's still on the ballot.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he dropped out. So they're running ads about this ultra-conservative they're attacking Lindsey from the hard right.
Interesting. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Spoil the well.
That's right.
That's essentially what it is.
So much money, that's what you're doing. Yep. So.
Well, and that was all that's out-of-state money that's pouring in. It's not from that state. It's from the national.
No, the guy's a teacher. He's not raising that money. That was a lot of independent groups, and that was a lot of outside money. And all of a sudden, nobody took a poll there until early October.
Yeah.
And then everyone got freaked out.
Yep.
Guys in the heat. Now, I think probably Lindsey Graham will win, but the fact that Texas, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina have all kinds of close races, either at the presidential, Senate, or local politics, is very, very telling.
Yeah.
It's very, very telling. It's part of the migration move, right, for sure. It's part of probably Latino voters standing their base out there, and it's probably COVID.
Yeah.
Right, because their senior voters are usually conservative, and they're tight, and so that Biden's attacking in Georgia and Kamala's coming to Texas is crazy.
Yeah.
It's not looking well. Now, if Biden loses, they're going to be like, what was he thinking? Why wasn't he in Florida, Pennsylvania, Ohio, North Carolina, right? Because if Trump wins 2 of those 4, he wins, right?
Well, let me put it kind of this way. There is no way it would have been impossible for Biden to win but for COVID. Like, if there was no coronavirus, the economy was on fire, it's still there is no number out there where he would have won if coronavirus hadn't rolled into town.
Absolutely.
I mean, he would have
I think that is 100% accurate. Now, I don't think it's disparaging against Biden. I don't think the people of the country say, hey, this is a problem. This guy ain't doing the work.
Well, it was 2 things, right? This guy ain't doing the work, and then the other thing, it woke everyone up to, whoa, I need to start paying attention to politics. What's going on here?
Right. Who's really running the country?
What's really going on? Yeah, Mike Pence has actually been running on this
Mike
stuff,
Pence,
right?
yeah.
So, but he's not really on the ballot. So it's I think if there was no coronavirus,
Trump
it would be a Trump. It would be a Trump
and the Senate
massacre.
It would be, they would hold the House, but that would be it.
Yeah, that it would. That would be
it.
Yeah, if there were, I think the administration greatly underestimated how important their coronavirus response is. That I think if there's one thing that Trump completely screwed up, it's that piece.
I think they're still screwing it up today.
Oh, I don't doubt that.
He's out there telling us we're turning the corner.
Yeah.
And we have the highest infection rates ever.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, what do you mean we're turning the corner?
Yeah.
You can look at it and it looks
peaking.
worse than April.
Yeah,
it's like it. Now, what's the problem with that? Their Democrat governors are saying, all right, we're going to shut everything down. It may piss everyone off, but at least they're like, okay, well, I get it. It's spiking. The ICUs are filling up again.
Yep.
And now you got Trump running around saying COVID's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And Casey posted, I shared it with everybody. He knows 8 people that died from it.
Yeah. We had someone in our mastermind tell a heartbreaking story, right?
Yeah, we heard it was in our mastermind group.
3 people in his family.
3 people in his family, and he got it. And
early.
2 of them died?
3 of them died.
3 of them died. And it was real early. It's like, it was what, February, March or something?
It
was
crazy. China flu, right?
Yeah, he was like, China flu. We didn't even know what it was. And he had 3 that died, like right off the bat. So.
He got stuck in Louisiana. Remember, there
That's
was
right.
Quarantine. They weren't allowing people back to Texas.
And he was like, I'm trying to come to y'all's mastermind event. I'm like, what do you mean? They already quarantined Louisiana, right?
Yep.
So I think the fact that even if they did the same response, but there was at least some level of empathy, I don't think we'd be where we are at.
I agree. The guy is no compassion.
Like, you could totally sit down and say, look, we think this is the appropriate response, and we get it, people are dying, but running around having no empathy for people, especially since so many people know folks that are impacted, it's absolutely insane.
Right. And it's sad because, I believe that Mike Pence is a good guy.
Oh, yeah.
He's a true conservative.
Yeah.
And frankly, he makes, he looks like a Jewish mother compared to Dick Cheney, right?
Yeah.
As far as compassion goes,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I believe that in the White House, Mike Pence has got it, but the other guy doesn't, right? And so
I will tell you, in Mike Pence's, in the Naval Observatory there is a lot of him and the wife, a lot of praying when he comes home. She's like,
of course,
babe, I know. It's just, we're just going to get through this.
All right.
It's gonna be fine.
He's a stiff guy, but again, compared to other guys, he's, very compassionate.
Yeah.
But it's not enough.
Right.
It's not enough. The Democrats are doing something really clever. They put this old video up of Joe Biden hugging a special needs kid whose father died in a school shooting.
Yeah.
And just showing Joe really hugging him and holding him and kissing him and doing the creepy stuff that he does, right? A little
too touchy.
Yes. And I'll talk more about that when we come back from a break. But it's a great example of, hey, this guy's got compassion.
Well, I will tell you something that Ted Cruz has always said, is he said, look, I've known Joe for years since I got to the Senate. And he said, when he comes in a room, everybody he's just one of those old school politicians, right? He's like, everybody likes him. He's always got a smile on his face. He's got some story. He remembers your kid's birthday and the grandkid and all. He's just one of those guys, right? And so that gets lost at the national level, but now he's out, now he starts showing this stuff, and it's like.
Yeah, they can just zoom it back in. He wasn't even supposed to be at the event. It was just, he was there.
Yeah.
He had gotten an invite. They said, hey, let's go over. He was only going to do 15 minutes. Guys wanted to spending an hour. And it's campaigning, but it's not campaigning. This little video's gone viral. They're showing it on ABC and Good Morning America and the Today Show and all that other stuff. That certainly hurts Trump. When you're sick, you want mommy, not daddy.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's at the end of that will be my statement on this election. If Biden wins, we were sick and we wanted mommy. Mm-hmm. And Democrats are the mommy party.
That's right.
We didn't want daddy.
Yeah.
We don't care about the Middle East. We don't care about all this nonsense. We just want mommy. We're sick.
Now, what's fascinating is, when word got out through Antifa and BLM, cut the riots and all that other stuff out, or we're going to lose the election, it all stopped. You got to remember, the law and order is gone now. Yeah. There's no law and order discussion on the nightly news anymore, right? It's all back to coronavirus. It's all back to COVID. Yeah. We're back to February and March again. So it is really going to be fascinating. If something does not change rapidly in the next 7 days, I don't see how he wins.
No.
I mean, something's got to happen. So,
hey, this is Robert and Jason here. This is bottom of the hour. Robert, this is Mr. Texas Real Estate. The Texas Real Estate Radio Network will be back. Yep. Yeah, let's go. Hey, everyone, welcome back. This is Robert with Mr. Texas Real Estate. I'm joined by Jason Bible, my partner, and this is the Texas Real Estate Radio Network. If you're interested in checking us out, finding out who the heck we are, looking at our bona fides, you can go ahead to mrtxre.com, MR as in Mr. TX as in Texas, RE as in realestate.com, mrtxre.com. Check us out. We're talking politics tonight. We're talking about the election. Overall, we don't think it's looking good for Trump, but it didn't look good for Trump 4 years ago either, right? And so he's following the same plays, and if it was good for the goose, it could be good for the gander, right? Mm-hmm. I just don't think that Biden is trending down. He's holding steady at 8 to 9% national average. And in the battleground states, it's hard when Texas, Ohio, Georgia are in play, and it looks like Biden's got a good lead in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, and the president's got to pick up one of those three. And ahead of that is Arizona going to Biden at this time, North Carolina going to Biden this time, and even Florida leaning towards the Democrats. And that would be a very interesting night, what that actually looks like. Early voting there is done very, very well. But if the president has got to defend in Florida and he's got to defend in Georgia, and boy, if Pence or Trump comes to Texas, there's a big problem.
There's a big problem.
Yep.
There's a real big problem. That would mean that it is really in play, right?
Yep.
I'm not quite sure I believe that Texas is really in play, regardless of voter turnout.
You know, the Democrats wish to turn this state purple for the last 12 years, right?
Yeah.
And they've always been talking, and then we had Beto, right? Beto was here 2 years ago, and that was going to be, and nothing happened, right?
Yeah.
So it's always kind of the same here, because we have such a large city base, but the state is so big. Those rural counties aren't ever going blue, right?
Well, one thing people forget in Houston's a good example, so is DFW, where Austin not so much, but the county may be blue, but nobody really lives in the county. I mean, they live in the county, but a lot of people don't really live in the county.
Like Fort Bend isn't going blue, right?
Fort Bend's not going blue anytime.
Yep.
My favorite quote this past year from I think it was a sheriff of Fort Bend County. They were having some folks coming down 59 and robbing and, just general kind of mayhem. And they knew exactly what neighborhoods they were coming from. And this guy literally said, if you do that here, we're sending you back to Harris County in a body bag. And I was like, he said it at a press conference. And I was like, wow, okay, well, Fort Bend ain't turning blue anytime soon, right? So
soon.
We will send you back to Harris County in a body bag. That was his little quote.
So, you know how the state turns purple? It's when you start having those little micro communities. Like you get all the hipsters want to go to downtown Refugio, right? And the county seat, and they love those old Victorian houses and those prairie homes down there. And somehow they convince someone to give them or Elon's Wi-Fi. Yeah. And once that Wi-Fi thing kicks in, then Refugio looks fantastic. Yeah. What's the city you like out in? You're on your bike route out there.
Oh, like LaGrange and Bastrop.
Like LaGrange.
I like Bastrop a lot.
Yeah, Bastrop, LaGrange. I mean, those got cute little downtowns and great little, turn of the last century buildings, and it'd be really great to do a little internet company there, right?
Yeah.
And if you have Elon's high-speed stuff, you're good to go.
What county is Marfa in? You guys ought to look Marfa up because there's a bunch of liberal artists there.
Yeah.
So look up Marfa and see if that's actually blue. I don't think it is, but there's a bunch of libs that just moved in, a little artist community there in the middle of nowhere.
Well, I watched my next guest with David Letterman, and it was Chappelle.
Uh-huh.
And they really kind of went into Yellow Springs, Ohio, where he lives. And it's a little beacon of liberalism, right?
Oh, that's funny.
This tiny little town in Ohio's got like a black community group and whatever, LGBT.
Yeah, whatever it is.
I forget.
The alphabet people.
Yeah, well, I don't want to say that, but
that's what he talks about.
I know that's
y'all have not seen Chappelle's. It's pretty funny.
It is funny, but it's also
incredibly offensive.
Yeah, offensive. So we're gonna move that. So alternative lifestyles out there, and that's what turns Texas blue. What turns it purple? When the rural counties don't drop 75% conservative.
Yeah.
When it starts going 68, 71, then the cities can make up. And that's Pennsylvania.
So here's the other problem I've got with this whole thing is I got the newest update. Essentially, the United States Congress, along with approval with the executive branch, starting with this whole COVID stuff, has printed $21 trillion through fiscal and monetary policy. So when someone says they're, quote, fiscally conservative and then signs off on trillions and trillions of dollars in new debt, are you really all that conservative? So it doesn't sound like you really stand for anything. I could actually go back and look at, I'd love to see the vote count for some of our conservative reps and and what our senators voted for. My guess is they voted for all this stuff, right? Which is fine.
Corn, dude, absolutely.
Yeah, which is fine. But just realize when you come to my gymnasium, to present on how conservative you are, and we're going to represent your conservative values and fiscal policy responsibility, and we're going to pressure the Fed to do X, Y. You're not. That's because when the chips are down is really when we see what your values are all about. And if it's print more money, that's not going to work. And we know that this $22 trillion, once it hits the street, the asset prices are going to go through the roof. So, again, one of my overriding themes here on our show is if you think real estate's expensive now, just wait. And I believe that to be absolutely true. It's going to become more and more and more expensive to be able to buy real estate, to buy a home for you to live in, to buy that next car. It's just going to absolutely jack up the price of all these things. Same thing on the stock market. What's so funny is I'm reading right here about Biden's tax hikes. And I'll tell you, Biden's tax hikes are nothing compared to the inflation you're about to experience between Congress and the executive branch during this coronavirus response. It's going to be, it will at a minimum be 10 times worse, maybe 5 to 7 times worse than what you experienced from the last money printing nonsense from the housing crisis in 2008.
Well, we were talking this as we sat down. The Union Leader, which is one of the oldest papers in the country, is in New Hampshire, and one of the most conservative papers in the country, for the first time ever, first time in 106 years or something like that, has endorsed a Democrat for president. And the opinion is scathing. It is absolutely scathing. Here, I'll just give you a little taste of it. We'll come back. We'll go over it a little bit more. Mr. Trump rightly points out that the COVID-19 crisis isn't his fault, but a true leader must own any situation that happens under their watch. We may be turning a corner with this virus, but the corner we turned is into a dark alley of record infections and deaths. Oh my God! And they are not happy about what they said was, one of the points they made was he was so free with spending money and going to debt that he energized Democrats. Right? He didn't control them. He agreed with them. They spent money, and that was a big, big problem. We'll go over it a little bit more when we come back from this break. This is Robert and Jason here with Mr. Texas Real Estate. Talking a little politics. I promise you, once this election's over, we'll be back to Marvel and Tesla. And maybe a little real estate. But right now we're going to carry on with some of this stuff that's happening because it's just it's topical on everyone. But again, check us out at mrtxre.com, Mr. TX Texas RE for realestate.com. We'll be back.
I want to say it was the New England Journal of Medicine that has never talked about politics. See if this is it. Yeah, it is, because there's the city of Marfa's got that little commune of artists. I've always wanted to go out there. It's just a 19-hour drive to get there.
They said, Biden is not perfect. We are not satisfied with the response about his son Hunter's foreign business dealings. His understanding of gun rights leaves a lot to be desired. Joe says we only need shotguns.
Yeah, well, I can make a mess with a Benelli M2, I can tell you that.
He says when cops face a dangerous situation, shoot him in the leg.
No, that's not going to work either.
Yeah, well, that's why he says he doesn't understand it. We get it.
Shoot him in the leg.
Shoot him in the leg.
Have you ever tried
to fire a warning shot off, Jason?
That's right. Have you ever tried to shoot? I think most people have not tried to shoot a moving target while they're wrestling with the target. Yeah. Like, a lot of people don't understand. Like, it's, the firearms training now it's just like you see in John Wick. It is exactly how you're fighting with a guy like this, and your number one job is to protect the gun. So you're literally, it's like you're just pumping rounds in these guys while you're fighting with them. And if they turn, this is another thing where they'll say, oh, he shot him in the back. Yeah, because he just got done trying to kill me, and I could just get the gun in a battery, so we're not going to allow him to go get a stick or a knife or a gun or God knows what else they're doing. I mean, it just shows complete lack of understanding about how the whole thing works.
Well, right. We only watch cop shows on TV, right? Ready when you are. Yep. Hey everyone, we're back. This is Robert and Jason with Mr. Texas Real Estate. This is a Texas Real Estate Radio Network. So we're gonna wrap up this last segment here. You know, if that blue wave comes, I think there are some legitimate concerns.
Oh, absolutely.
But one, I as much as we try to paint Biden as a socialist, he's not a socialist.
No, I'm not worried about him. I'm worried about Kamala.
Yeah, well, we got to worry about Joe's health, right? Because I'm watching him yesterday and I'm thinking, boy, he should have ran 4 years ago.
Well, he's run so many times, right?
He should have ran 4 years ago. He didn't want to step in front of Hillary, all that other stuff. And I'm looking at him now. I'm like, the country would have been okay if this was his re-election campaign, because he does look old, right? Really, he's getting there, right? He looks like, I don't know if you ever saw the Harry Potter, the Fantastic Beasts series, but he looks like the alchemist Nicholas Flamel, who just lived hundreds of years. He's so old, he just cracks when you shake his hand, right?
Yeah.
So I'm looking at him, I was like, that dude's not looking healthy. Now, I don't think he has any cognitive problems. I think he'll be fine on that. I think he's a deep thinker. I think he's always had a foot in his mouth, which, you know, can make you feel like the guy doesn't have a command of the situation. But he's a policy guy. He's a policy wonk. He knows all that stuff. It's just what policy.
Yeah, it's I just pulled this up just for grins. The age of presidents, the median age upon accession, meaning they got elected and now they're going to assume office, is 55 years and 3 months. Like, both these guys in their late 70s is not great.
No, not at all.
It's not. You really don't. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, old guys can. I mean, these guys are in their 70s. They should be retired. George Washington was 57. Adams 61. Thomas Jefferson, Madison, Monroe, Quincy Adams. They were all under 60, 57, 58, which back then was a million years old, right?
The average age of a billionaire is 66.
Yes. Here's the interesting thing. Average age of a billionaire is 66, but in order for you to reach $1 billion, you have to have made your first million by 35.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of people think, oh, yeah, it's just, you know.
Yeah, I'm going to do it now.
I'm going to do it now.
Yeah, I'm going to do it now.
You had to have started in your 30s before you get there in your 60s, right? There's just statistically. Let's see. Garfield was 49, young guy. Eisenhower looks like he was the oldest at the time at 70. Of course, Kennedy was 46.
Yeah.
Clinton was 54. But, yeah, you just got to get – this is I mean, you looked at Obama. Let's see. Obama was 55. I mean, he got out and looked he was a young-looking dude anyway, right?
Yeah.
But he looked
old
in his 60s when he got out, right? I mean, he's still a good-looking dude, but it's like – I mean, those were hard days there.
Yeah. So, that being said, you know, the trend is it's going to be blue, which is, and you know, again, I've already told you, I'm liberal Democrat since I was in third grade, right? My first election was Jimmy Carter, right?
Yeah.
But that's not what's best for this country. Right. It is best when the government is split,
and they're all fighting with each other.
When they're all and they're all fighting, and it is very, very good to see. Because either nothing radical gets done, right, or you compromise.
I will tell you, those years with for the contract with America with Bill Clinton, and it was everyone says Bill Clinton balanced the budget. No, it was Congress.
Right.
Arm wrestling him.
Yep.
And they did it. And they did a great job. And then after that, it's just kind of so either party running the whole show doesn't work.
Yep.
It just doesn't work.
It never does. It never does. And you get brief moments, right? So you could see a blue wave, and you could see, you know, the Democrats lose the Senate in 2 years.
Yeah.
Right. So that you have to do it. But I'll just say this in my parting thoughts here is if you're a Republican, and most of the people who are watching us are Republicans, just understand how bad it sucked for Democrats 4 years ago when they thought Hillary was for sure, and everyone told them this was going to be Hillary, and they already started planning all their policies and all that other stuff. And, you know, you can talk about, this guy isn't my president, all that other stuff. But, that's how it works. Like this Supreme Court nomination thing, and it's breaking protocol, doesn't matter.
No.
Doesn't matter. Republicans are in charge of the Senate, and they are the ones who decide who goes up to the Supreme Court. And that's how it works. That's the deal. That's how it was set up. Is it bad form? Maybe. But now we just created new form.
Yeah.
So what? Now if you're in control of the Senate, you put anyone you want in it anytime you want.
Elections have consequences.
Right. They have consequences. If you're too bad that Democrats gave up on the South, right?
Yeah.
That's their fault. They could have held. They lost 4 seats. They gave up on a lot of places. That's what happens. It's going to be the same thing, right?
I think the difference then and now is everyone was like, Hillary's got it in the bag, got it in the bag, got it in the bag. And it was that expectation that was like, holy cow. I don't think there's a big expectation that Trump's going to win. I'm seeing a lot of delusion. Like, oh, yeah, he's totally got it in the bag, no big deal.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's not as close as you guys think it is.
Yeah, by about 10 o'clock on East Coast time on that election night, I was like, oh, this is not good.
I will never forget. I'm sitting there. It's close to midnight, and it was either Wisconsin or Pennsylvania that flips. And I'm like, oh, he's got a chance of winning this. This is crazy. Start texting all my buddies. I'm like, are y'all watching this?
I watched Nate Silver and then pulling him out and then him saying, hey, he's at a 40% chance right now.
Yeah.
He's at a 40% chance. This is the real thing that's happening. And I watched that rate increase. I followed Nate Silver the last time, so it was really interesting. We're going to be here on election night.
We'll be here election night. We'll have a little party here. So we'll turn the cameras on.
I'm going to buy the shield. Have you seen the shield?
The face shield? Yeah.
It doesn't mount on your forehead, though. It mounts down here.
Really?
You wear it like you strap it over your thing, and it folds up.
Oh, that's funny.
So I think I might wear that for the party. Right? Or I'll just get a big milk jug on my head and I'll go as a dog there.
Trump wins. We're going to have all the Trump flags out. If he doesn't, we're closing up early.
Close up. But let me just talk to all my new friends here in Texas. If this state goes blue, that's the reality of it.
Yeah.
Right? This country went red and president won, and that's the reality of it. All those smug SOBs in San Francisco and all those liberal places just thought that, they were smarter and better. Didn't realize that, everyone gets to vote in this country.
That's right.
Right? Not just liberal elites. Everyone gets to vote. And this year, same thing. Everyone gets to vote. That's what it is.
And it seems like everybody is going to vote this year.
Yeah. I mean, listen, nothing that Trump did made anyone any worse off.
Yeah. So let's probably in summation of this whole – are we in our last segment?
Last minute.
Okay. So at the end of the day, regardless of who gets elected, if it affects your business, you've screwed something up greatly.
Yeah.
I mean, completely screwed something up.
Yeah.
So you have got to be one of my favorite terms from Nassim Taleb. You've got to be anti-fragile.
Yes.
And one of the things that we're talking about right now is, do we get a dual passport? Do we get dual citizenship?
Sure.
Because the trend that we're seeing with this massive amount of debt is how do we diversify? It's kind of like that third level investing when you're investing for depreciation.
Right.
It's that next level. Should I be looking at having money and investment opportunities outside the United States?
Yes.
So we're starting that process right now. Not because we think the country's bad, regardless of who gets elected, but it's a good thing to do when you get to a certain level of net worth.
Absolutely. Hey, everyone, thank you for joining us tonight. Robert Jason signing off. Have a good one. We'll be back tomorrow night.